In a quiet little town, nestled between rolling hills, lived an old woman named Ilera. She was the wealthiest person in town, having inherited a fortune from her late husband. But her wealth wasn't a source of admiration. It was a source of fear. The townsfolk called her the Wicked Widow. She lived alone in a grand mansion that loomed over the village like a stone sentinel, its windows dark and its gates always locked. Ilara was rarely seen, and when she was, her face was a mask of cold indifference. She never smiled, never greeted anyone, and her sharp, dismissive words cut deeper than any winter wind. The children would dare each other to run up and touch her iron gates, scurrying away with frightened giggles before her shadow could fall upon them. The adults spoke of her in hushed, resentful tones. They believed she hoarded her husband's money, letting it gather dust while the town struggled. The local bakery was failing, the school roof leaked, and the community well was running dry. Yet Ilara did nothing. Her heart, they said, was as cold and hard as the gold coins locked away in her vault. One day, a young boy named Leo, whose family ran the struggling bakery, found his favorite kite tangled in the high branches of a tree on Ilara's property. Tears welled in his eyes. It was a gift from his father, and he couldn't bear to lose it. Mustering all his courage, he crept through a small gap in her fence and tiptoed across the perfectly manicured lawn. Just as he reached the tree, a harsh voice startled him. "What are you doing here, boy?" It was Ilara standing on her porch, her eyes like chips of ice. Trembling, Leo pointed a shaky finger at the tree. "My kite." It stuck. Ilara stared at the kite, then back at the boy. For a long moment, she said nothing. The town's whispers seemed to echo in the silence. Leo expected her to shout, to chase him away. Instead, she turned and went back inside, shutting the door with a soft click. Defeated, Leo's shoulders slumped. He had lost his kite for good. But a few minutes later, the door creaked open again. Ilara emerged, not with anger, but with a long, sturdy, pruning pole. Without a word, she walked to the tree and, with surprising dexterity, carefully nudged the kite free from the branches. It floated down gently into Leo's waiting hands. He stared at her, speechless. "Thank you," he finally whispered. Ilara just gave a curt nod and turned to go back inside. But before she did, Leo saw something he'd never seen before, a flicker of something other than bitterness in her eyes. It looked almost like sadness. The next morning, the baker, Leo's father, was shocked to find an envelope slipped under his door. Inside was enough money to save the bakery, along with an anonymous note that simply read, "For the sweetbread." Soon after, a crew of builders arrived to fix the school's roof, paid for by a mysterious donor. The town well was repaired and deepened, providing fresh water for everyone. Each act of generosity was a puzzle, and no one could figure out who their secret benefactor was. But Leo knew. He started visiting Ilara's gate every day, leaving a small, warm loaf of bread on the ground. At first, the bread would just disappear. Then, one day, the gate was left slightly ajar. He stepped inside and found Ilara sitting on her porch. She gestured to a chair beside her. As they sat in silence, sharing the bread, she finally spoke, her voice softer than he'd ever heard. She told him about her husband, a kind and generous man who had loved the town deeply. His dream had always been to use his wealth to help it prosper. But when he passed away, Ilara was consumed by grief. She locked herself away, pushing the world out, because it reminded her of her loss. The town's whispers of Wicked Widow only reinforced her isolation, making her believe that's all she could ever be. Leo's simple act of courage, his quest for a lost kite, had reminded her of the world outside her grief. It reminded her of her husband's dream. From that day on, the gates of the mansion were always open. Ilara, with Leo by her side, began to actively participate in the town's life, funding projects and offering wisdom. The wicked widow was gone, replaced by a woman whose generosity was as vast as her fortune. She taught everyone that sometimes the coldest exteriors hide the warmest hearts, just waiting for a little kindness to help them thaw. And the town learned that judging a book by its cover can make you miss the most beautiful story. Thanks for watching. If this story touched your heart, remember to like and subscribe for more inspiring tales.